Welcome to Sino-Warfare with Ralph D. Sawyer.
Knowledge and the Fundamental Vision. In his chapter, Planning Offensive, Sunzi cites a military aphorism: one who knows the enemy and knows himself will not be endangered in 100 engagements. After probably thinking about the dangers of partial knowledge, he concluded, one who does not know the enemy but knows himself will sometimes be victorious, sometimes meet with defeat. Even worse, one who knows neither the enemy nor himself will invariably be defeated in every engagement. The dangers posed by ignorance extend to questions of tactical imbalance and the nature of the terrain.
Knowing our troops can attack, but not knowing the enemy cannot be attacked, is only halfway to victory. Knowing the enemy can be attacked, but not realizing our troops cannot attack, is only halfway to victory. Knowing that the enemy can be attacked, and knowing that our army can undertake the attack, but not knowing the terrain isn't suitable for combat, is only halfway to victory.
Survival will be assured only if this sort of ignorance can be dispelled.
Thus, one who truly knows the army will never be deluded when he moves, never be impoverished when initiating an action. Therefore it's said that if you know them and know yourself, your victory won't be imperiled. If you know heaven and you know earth, your victory can be complete.
Knowing the enemy sounds like something easily accomplished, but gathering intelligence requires extensive effort and more than a little luck. After that, astute analysis is required, something I personally found often turns into a highly acrimonious affair. And the question of knowing yourself looms so large, it often becomes an insurmountable obstacle. Fortunately, the art of war identifies a number of factors that can provide a basis for both processes, and thereby coincidentally defines what should be critical objectives, as well as potential areas of tactical vulnerability.
To be accurate when undertaking a comparative evaluation using estimates, ask, which ruler has the Tao? Which general has greater ability? Who has gained the advantages of heaven and earth? Whose laws and orders are more thoroughly implemented? Whose forces are stronger? Whose officers and troops are better trained? Whose rewards and punishments are clearer? From these I will know victory and defeat.
A few brief examples of this sort of assessment, couched in terms of state character, have been preserved in the Wuzi, a Warring States writing. To cite just one, Qin, sometimes described as China's Sparta, and of course the creators of the famous terracotta tomb soldiers, is characterized as follows. Qin's character is strong, the land is treacherous, and the government severe. Their rewards and punishments are trusted. The people never yield, but instead are all fiery and contentious. Thus they scatter and individually engage in combat. This sort of knowledge facilitates the formulation of tactics. Quote, the way to attack them is to first entice them with profit, because their soldiers are greedy, and they will abandon their generals to pursue them. Capitalizing on their misjudgment, you can hunt down their scattered ranks, establish ambushes, take advantage of the moment, and capture their generals. Now overall, roughly 40 paired, mutually defined categories for fathoming the enemy and analyzing battlefield situation appear in the entire art of war. For example, when approaching the battlefield, the comparative state of readiness can be determined by reflecting upon the following factors.
Hunger or satiety, exhausted or rested, ordered or disordered, fearful or confident, cold or warm, wet or dry, lax or alert.
Since commanders have extraordinary power over life and death and determine the army's fate, they are subject to similar scrutiny. Naturally, prevailing concepts of ideal qualifications inescapably affect the evaluation process. Courage claims precedence in most cultures, but wisdom had priority in China. In the book's enumeration of 5 desirable traits, wisdom is followed by credibility, benevolence, courage, and then strictness. On the other hand, 5 dangerous traits are also identified.
A general committed to dying can be slain. A general committed to living can be captured. A general easily angered and hasty to act can be insulted. A general obsessed with being scrupulous and tainted can be shamed. A general who loves the people can be troubled.
Just as conceptualized in Swinburne's military methods and the classic military writings such as the 6 Secret Teachings, flaws that are identified through the assessment process immediately become objectives for tactical exploitation. The process of critically analyzing them in order to know the estimations for gain and loss will reveal whether an aggressive course will have a reasonable chance of success. But if the analysis indicates the enemy enjoys a decided advantage, the general must either avoid the enemy's forces and assume a defensive posture, or implement tactics that will convert superiority into weakness. If he doesn't, he will eventually be condemned as someone who, quote, unable to fathom the enemy, engaged a large number with a small number, or attacked the strong with the weak, leading to the army being routed. Separately, Sunzi enumerates 5 factors from which victory can be known.
One who knows when he can fight and when he cannot fight will be victorious. One who recognizes how to employ large and small numbers will be victorious. One whose upper and lower ranks have the same desires will be victorious. One who, fully prepared, awaits the unprepared will be victorious. And one whose general is capable and not interfered with by the ruler will be victorious.
Provided that it's in the state's best interest, commanders who successfully conclude the assessment process are enjoined to proceed on their own initiative.
If the Tao of warfare indicates certain victory, even though the ruler has instructed combat should be avoided, if the commander must engage in battle, it's permissible. If the Tao of warfare indicates he will not be victorious, even though the ruler instructs him to engage in battle, not fighting is permissible. A general who doesn't advance to seek fame, nor fail to retreat to avoid being charged with the capital offense of retreating, but seeks only to preserve the people and gain advantage for the ruler, is the state's treasure.
This well accords with the overall emphasis upon achieving victory through wisdom, at the least cost in men and materials in Chinese military thought. However, the art of war's underlying vision is far more radical. It's frequently thought that despite its apparent profundity, the art of war is nothing more than a concatenation of pronouncements upon disparate military subjects. However, I believe a singular concept that I have described as the ruthless practice of efficient warfare underlies, informs, and pervades the entire book. This shouldn't be confused with the efficient practice of ruthless warfare, which the Mongols strategically adopted to terrify their opponents into surrendering. In fact, the art of war advocates a diametrically opposite course by asserting that commanders should fight with the object of preservation, as we will discuss later. Now, Sunzi felt it's counterproductive to force people into such desperate circumstances that they have to fight or die. The experience is psychologically identical to that of soldiers being deliberately thrown onto so-called fatal terrain, a key concept in the art of war, in order to elicit a maximum effort, a technique Sunzi does advocate. Conversely, angering the enemy by annihilating everyone, including the wounded and men who have surrendered, only stiffens resistance and increases the cost of war. Sunzi therefore says, treat the captured soldiers well in order to nurture them for our own use. This is referred to as conquering the enemy and growing stronger. 2 classic warring states military writings offer some specifics. The Sima Fa states, when you enter the enemy's territory, do not do violence to his gods, hunt his wild animals, destroy his earthworks, set fire to the buildings, or cut down the forests. Do not take the 6 domesticated animals, grains, or farming implements. When you see the elderly or the very young, return them without harming them. When you encounter adults, unless they engage you in combat, do not treat them as enemies. If an enemy has been wounded, provide medical treatment and return him. Now, the Six Secret Teachings, later Warring States work, makes the admonition against widespread killing even more explicit. Do not kill those who surrender or slay your captives. Instead, show them benevolence and righteousness and extend your generous virtue to them. In this way, the entire realm will submit. Now, unfortunately, that's not to say these prohibitions were routinely observed or that prisoners were never slain. 400,000 men from Zhao were reportedly buried alive by Qin's forces when they surrendered after the Battle of Chongping in 260 BC, and another 100,000 massacred by Shangyu during the quest to establish the Han Dynasty. Obviously, constraints and prohibitions such as these can't be haphazardly implemented. Commanders have to be consistent in their measures, as well as ruthlessly efficient, to minimize their own losses and maximize the gains that can be achieved, including by co-opting the enemy's personnel. How this can be accomplished will be discussed in our next talk, Manipulation and Deception. Meanwhile, please don't forget to hit the so-called subscriber button if you find these talks worthwhile, so as to ensure our continued visibility. Thank you for watching.